The Becoming Flame podcast broadcasts pure, unfiltered power exchange that stokes the flame of your being. Because it's time to remember. It's time to return. It's time to become flame. So many old souls, so many women who are here to shift the axis of this planet, to shift us into the way that we are going to start rebuilding this earth, have been raised and conditioned to believe that they are alone, that it all falls on them. World War III could have occurred at so many other points in time, and it still hasn't happened. Why hasn't it happened? And this is the clinch. This is the point that everybody needs to understand. Everybody in the world needs to understand this. If nothing else, understand this point. They need your buy-in. They need your acceptance. They need you to power up the frequency of war alongside of them. Hello, today it's just me. The truth of you is contained in your cells. The truth of you as a creation is here in this moment, instantaneously occurring. Not in 5 years, not through various different layers, not after some kind of work needs to be done, but here and now. Completely stepping onto the ground like the creator that you are, utilizing instantaneous creation powers that are yours inherently, is the only work that you have to master. Because the question becomes, are you living as a creation of you? Are you able to understand the full and complete, authentic truth of you, even for a nanosecond? Even if it's only for a nanosecond, can you understand the completion of the truth of you in that moment, in that split nanosecond of a moment? Because if you can, then you can start to work on holding that, on accepting that, on receiving that, and being that. And for then you will start to see and understand that this new earth, this new you, whatever you conceptualize it as, can be created in a second because it already is. It is where you are in the truth of you. The you which you've identified with is stuck in this slave self falsehood where you and the truth of you are not. Wherever you are locked into a point of time where you are in a slavery function, where you are locked into that psyop, where you believe what the 3D is telling you, where you believe that there is lack and scarcity and war and famine and hardship and struggle. The more you believe in that reality, the more that you will create it around you, because you only ever create that which is where you are. You only experience and create at that level. But if you can come into where you are in the truth of you, and you can learn to hold that for longer, then you will naturally start to receive the purification of the frequency of truth as it purifies that which is untrue. And you will become a greater and greater and greater match to the frequency of greatest creation for you as an individual. And you rise to live there, to create there, to be there. And this induction almost that you go through, this initiation into the truth of you, is simply to resume your life in truth, no longer giving your energy away to the projection, into that slavery self, into that false identity where you were brought up on fairy tales and folklores and all of these other stories and narratives and visions that they've given you, these images that you have put into your heads help you to create, because you create from your imagination. And so if Hollywood dictates what is available for your imagination, what is being programmed in your imagination, then you will naturally start to reimagine and recreate a slightly better in slavery imprisonment for yourself. that it's slightly better. So now it's like, instead of being in poverty, I have slightly more money, yet I remain enslaved, yet I remain part of this system of extraction and extracting the light of those who have true souls. The entire system is predicated and founded on the very precarious and yet so far successful, and soon to no longer be successful, understanding that if people do not know their power, they will allow us to continue to take it from. So let us show us these fantasies that they can buy these things, that they can enslave themselves deeper into the agenda of capitalism, of extraction, of some lives meaning more than other lives, where they have no power, where they have no agency, where they have no connection to their truth. And as long as we make it comfortable for them, convenient for them, suitable to their, laziness and ineptitude, then they will continue to buy into the fantasy that we feed them, into the superhero stories that we feed them, that someone else is coming to save them. And then that person who's the savior who arrives is part of their agenda. So who knows how to speak whatever you want to hear, because you're so craving for someone to be telling you that. But because you're so disconnected from your own body, from your own truth, from your own frequency of the truth that you are, someone standing in front of you telling you falsehoods, it lands because you're not in your body to know that's off. And that's how so much mass coercion and control and confusion can continue, or has continued to occur, is because people who know the truth of them weren't in their bodies, weren't in their signal. And so the most important thing for you to do in order to know the truth, to feel the truth, to never be manipulated, to never be coerced, to not buy into the fear structures of what they're telling you is going to happen, but to come into the truth of your body, to know, if I do not buy into this, and if I do not believe in this, if I do not choose to see this, if I do not choose to create my reality around a 3D structure that was given to me, forced on me, manipulated to make me believe it, it cannot occur without my consent. It cannot occur. It cannot be created. It cannot be affecting me without my consent to believe in that reality, to create that reality. And so as more and more and more people remove their energy from the false psyop, from the vision, the television, the projection, the slavery that is being broadcast across all frequency channels that the 3D manipulation game has access to, if you remove yourself from that and you stop looking at it, you stop buying into it, you stop putting it in your retina in order to put that back onto the projection of you and your life and your reality and your creation, it cannot eventuate. It is only through mass buy-in of these false realities that they can even occur. And that is why World War III still hasn't happened. If you don't think that you have power to stop this war in this moment, you are wrong. You are out of your truth. You are out of the connection to the truth of how this universe works. Even just go down to quantum physics. A particle at the subatomic level, at the quantum level, cannot and does not even exist until you observe it. You create the reality once you put your observation there, once you put your attention there, once you put your intention there. And so if you shift your attention from that which they want you to be looking into, that which they want you to see, and shift it back into what you actually want to create, that is the entire way in which you change and ensure your future is positive. You will never hear me on this podcast saying things like Eastain. I don't even say the full word. I will never look into what that is. that has always existed under the scenario that we give it power. Why did it all get revealed at this time? Well, there's a number of different reasons. Firstly, there wasn't enough power, attention, and energy extracted in that system any longer to keep it alive. So very conveniently, this comes to power at the moment. Everyone puts their energy on it. Everyone talks about it. Everyone speaks it into being. We make videos, we make narrations, we talk amongst our friendship group, and all of a sudden this now has ample energy to continue where it didn't before. None of this stuff that arrives in the public domain, a public domain that is controlled by slavery masters, which is also linked to all of these underground activities that are happening, that doesn't come into the light by them and by their own admission unless it needs more energy, unless it needs more attention, unless it needs more momentum. So in giving it that, you are taking what is part of you into it. It's another form of extraction. It's another form of energy. And if you do a galactic view and you start to see where all your energy is flowing out of you and into other sources, if that's not reticulating back in light and in purity, you are just feeding a system. You are just feeding a system of slavery, of extraction, of depletion, and really of nefarious affairs. And this is not to shame you, and this is not to blame you. This is to create awareness. Be aware of where you put your energy. Energy, your frequency, your truth, your signature is your greatest asset, but it's also theirs. And they want it. They want everything that you have because the frequency of an authentic, true, loving being is extraordinarily powerful. It's extraordinarily powerful. And my sense of it and what I've been told and what I see and experience in the world is there are really only around 300, 400, maybe 500,000 authentic, true souls. And the rest of the population is made up of parallel universes and realities playing out, parallel selves and realities playing out. So it's factions of you. So various different aspects of you being played out. That's one way. Another way is obviously these people who are arriving. And by people, I do not mean people. So there are highly positive frequency beings, but there are also high negative frequency beings. And there is a war playing out on this planet right now that is being reflected in the 3D reality and the illusion of that war, which is just really a reflection of what is happening at that higher level. The earth is a coveted place. And given that native earth beings have disconnected themselves from the earth frequency and from the biotechnology that works in tandem with the earth, and we've been deluded into believing this earth is a dead place that we can extract what we need from it for our own beings under this guise of what we call capitalism or patriarchy, which is actually something that's taking place at a much higher frequency and a much higher level at a galactic sense. But it's all reflected in every single functionality at every level of every vibration, of every frequency, of every reality set. So you understand what's happening at a macro if you understand what's happening at 3D, because it's reflected there, it's mirrored there, it's being projected out from our truth center. Because that's how we create whatever we are seeing or experiencing subtly or directly is being played out. And so what is important to understand now, that in order for you to shift the reality of the world that we live in, the primary function of you in your everyday life and what you can do in this moment to actually affect change, and you can affect enormous change. So that's the second thing. So, the first thing is, where are you putting your attention? Where are you putting your energy? Where are you giving it away? And if it's not coming back to you, you have a sense of that's not a place you want to be putting it. Because in nature and in truth, we are always giving and receiving. We are in that biofrequency of interconnection, of creation. You know, no energy can ever be destroyed. But in a system of capitalism, in a system of slavery, in a system of extraction, it's not that energy can be destroyed, but it's that energy can be accumulated. But in the truth of nature and the truth of us as native beings, we don't need to accumulate. We don't need to stockpile, because when we are in the frequency of creation, that which we need simply arrives, simply is generated, is pulled from wherever it is as a magnet to the source of what is needed in that moment for the greatest creation, not only for you as an individual, but for all of us collectively. Because when we are in the truth and authentic being of ourselves, that which we create as a reflection of us is part of a greater macro interconnected system. And so what benefits us benefits all others very naturally. You don't need to think about it. Only in a system of capitalism, extraction, accumulation, where some have and some do not have, do you now need to start sitting and thinking, how do I shift this so that others benefit as well? Because the natural systems of flow don't take that into account or consideration. They've rerouted the way that energy flows into those who can stockpile and safeguard, i.e. we have these banks and these other institutions and conglomerate organizations that simply sit on resources, false resources, but resources nonetheless. And they stockpile that and then they divvy it up to make you believe that if you don't know how to stockpile something, then you are of less value. You are of less worth, because look at the worth that they have. Accumulation now equals value. If you don't know how to accumulate, if you don't know how to create stockpiles, create mass, create what has now been dubbed as overflow, i.e. more than you need in that moment, then that means something about your identity. And the mass buy-in to that simple belief has done more damage to disconnecting us as individuals from each other and from the natural biotechnology way of creation that is innate to our body, that is in our cellular structure. We naturally know how to create, and we create worlds, universes, humans, so much from our natural capacity to create. Now, the easiest way to think about this is if a woman were to have 3 children in her lifetime, she wouldn't go ahead and make 6 arms at once and then stockpile and keep the other 4 for later when she was in the pregnancy with her first child. Then she wouldn't go ahead and make 6 legs, stockpile the other 4, and put the other 2 onto the baby. That is a masculine, capitalist, in slavery, false creation method that is built on factories and the over or the mass production of goods and services. When anything in nature creates, it creates in that moment that which is required. And it creates an overflow in the sense of a flower or a plant, a flowering plant, creates thousands of new seeds from that one plant. There is an enormous amount of overflow in nature, but never does the plant sit on the seeds and then say to the animal that will consume that plant or whatever, if you want this seed, then you must. It is overflow from the state of, and this is who I be, and I replicate myself in infinity, in joy and in pure bliss of creation. I seek to share this out freely and widely wherever it can go. And then in return, it will come back to me by the planting of these seeds, by the bees pollinating and all of these different interconnected systems of symbiosis exist in nature, and as with humans in that system as well. So first of all, to believe that you are above in a hierarchy of living things already gives you indication to just how far removed your thinking has become in terms of creation. If you are more important, more valued, more worthy than a plant because you know how to speak to other humans, but you don't know how to speak to plants, and therefore plants don't speak and don't have consciousness and don't have frequency, it is simply a reflection of your greatest ignorance and a lack of connection into the truth of this earth, as if everything is dead and the only living conscious being are humans. And equally, the disbelief that we are the only living form in a galaxy, in a universe, in a cosmos, it shows the narrow but also linked in thinking to this control system. And so just from that very simple question of how many life forms of high consciousness, of intelligence are there that you know of, if you say one, it is a beautiful reflection point in this moment to say, what else in my thinking has been so controlled, so narrowed, so manipulated, so coerced into a framework of thinking that I actually never came up with, but believe wholeheartedly. And therefore, what are the belief systems that I've never even thought to question that I am replicating in my creation? How much of my life right now can be looked at through a lens of somebody else is controlling the way that I think, the way that I consider, the way that I even come to knowledge about what is true and what is false? And therefore, is anything that I think true at all? If you've received your history of this planet from history books that have been written, from history that has been told to you, given to you by an institution, by a book, by a so-called learned professional of any domain, and it hasn't been received directly from you and your body, your memory, your dream state, your deeper stirring of remembering. If you don't even know how to know the history of this earth from your body, do you even know it? Do you even know it? And how, therefore, do you know that any of it is true? They say that the greatest histories were written well after the last truth teller could ever give their version. But we are all truth tellers that can give our version, but not when we're hooked up to somebody else's agenda. And so really the invitation here is this conversation is not just about how you earn money, because that's what we've been really focused on. And they're very happy with this, right? If you focus on alternative ways of earning a living that still places money in the center of that decision of how am I going to provide financially via a money system, then you will continue to need that system. You will continue to keep that system alive. If your belief is, I cannot live without money, I cannot live without X, then whatever X is, you give power to. If you want to give power to these pedophiles and to these bankers and to all of these nefarious players around, then keep talking about the news cycle that they got you occupied in. But if you want to talk about what is true and you want to learn about that truth, then you require an enormous amount of stillness, an enormous amount of silence. And silence just doesn't mean sitting alone in your room, scrolling on your phone, not talking to anyone, because your phone is extremely loud. It's full of stories and it's full of propaganda and it's addictive. It wants you stuck in that loop of what having that in your ears, blasting that in your ears, blasting that to your eyes, having your skin absorb other people's codes that have nothing to do with truth, nothing to do with your own version of what it is. These stories from Marvel, from Disney, from fairy tales, where there is this one person that comes to save everyone. It's such a distortion and it's such a powerful vision, because what it does simultaneously is it makes you believe you don't have the power to affect change as just an ordinary person. And it makes super ordinary look like something that you aren't. So it collapses your self-belief in your power and your agency and in the energy and the creation that you naturally are. So if you don't believe that you could affect change, that you could even change your own life, then you won't seek that out. And you so continue to buy into the 3D reality. And that's a really hard place to start change. That's a really hard place to make any effect. It's a linear struggle, strife, slavery system that has no capacity to change in any real way, because you're not the creator of that world. And most importantly, your frequency doesn't even belong there. Your truth isn't in there. So affecting change in the 3D reality loops you, keeps you stuck in that slavery and that false identity. And so what you need to do fundamentally is remember the truth of who you be. Put down all the images, put down all the false identities, put down all of those things. And in the truth of you, you understand, oh my goodness, I have superordinary abilities. I have superordinary abilities to affect change. And it's laughable. You don't know the power that you hold. The drug truly is at our expense. So we remain apathetic, we remain inactive, docile, thinking that we have no power, no capacity, no ability to change it. And as a result, we allow terrible things to occur in the name of our own self-powerlessness. We allow these things to happen simply by the fact that we continue to speak about it, put our attention in it, give it space, time, and life. We give it life force. That's why television is so powerful. That's why the movies are so powerful. That's why social media is so powerful. It is not a tool of connection. It's not even a tool of propaganda. It is a tool for you to feed its life force. These slavery masters actually have no real capacity to fuel a life, to give a life anything in this planet, because they don't naturally come from here. They don't have powers that would create, and they have extraction. They know how to extract. They don't know how to create. They need the generators. They need the generators. Who are the generators? The natural heirs to Earth, the humans. Even hybrids can't do what humans can do to the extent and the ease and the power that they can do it in the Earth playground. The greatest ruse that has ever been pulled off is the ruse of making humans believe that they are powerless to do anything, because the truth of the matter is they can't do anything without human power. They created the internet based on the power of human interconnection. We are network beings. We are network beings. And so what did they do? They extracted our networking capabilities and disconnected us, turned us away from each other, created this disunity amongst every aspect of our humanity and our society. First, it was racially or geographically. Then it was familially. So, creating difficulties for powerful families to be set up and work in tribes, So tribes used to be a collection of families or one larger family working together towards harmony. That was the goal. We were looking to live in harmony with nature. It was never about accumulating. It was about manifesting or creating or generating from the replication of the harmonic resonance with the earth and the codes that you be and the signature that you be in that moment. It's this idea of putting your foot down as you speak, as you walk, it will create the pathway underneath you. How many of you are terrified of that? And do you know why? It's an implanted belief system that without a safety net, you will not be okay. You need a plan. You need to be in logical, rational planning, slowly moving towards a goal. The concept of a goal is not native to humans. It's not native to harmonic resonance. The concept of a slow, logical, rational, considered, planned way of doing it in a linear, slow, logical way, that's not our native way of doing things. Humans create in vortexes. They create in spirals. That is why the heart is a vortex. The heart is, when you unravel the heart, it is a vortex. It is a spiral vortex that moves in the creation space of a vortex mechanism. We create in vortices. We create through fluidity, through spontaneity, and through synchronicity. We create in multidimensional time-space realities that actually overlap in the spiral. So you can move between dimensions and realities in this way. And anyone who is multidimensional and who knows how to create in this aspect, you will likely have a life with no material consistency around you. If you are a multidimensional being who has the creation codes of a new earth inside of you and you are here to share them, it is very likely that you were placed in a family or your family was distorted at the time of birth to be scared, fearful, compliant. You grew up in a very, very compliant family. Compliant to whom? To the slavery structures of this earth. You were therefore completely and consistently wronged, shamed, judged, confused by the family members around you, by the wider community around you. Why? Because if you, a powerful creator who knows how to create through vortex creation, multidimensional force in the replication of the being that you are, i.e. you can snap your fingers and an entire world unfolds in front of you, you need to be stopped. You are dangerous. And so you will know fundamentally how powerful you are if you doubt everything about your native capacities. If you feel very unsure about what you're supposed to do in this linear model, if you have never been able to hold anything that you've created and it slips through your fingers, if you struggle with materialization, if you struggle with consistency over, decades, if you find it so foreign to set a career goal and then methodically work towards such an achievement of a goal like that, you will be so bored and you will abandon that. And then what will start to happen is that your 3D reality will start to provide you with an enormous amount of proof that your family, that your wider community, that the culture that you come from has been saying all along, which is you don't have very much to give. And if you don't have a lot around you, an expensive car, an expensive house, this, and this, if you don't have those things, then you don't have very much value. You don't have very much worth. And the moment you start to believe that is where you then start to create the reality of connection into that slavery, into that psyop. And that is a very powerful way to lock powerful people out of the power that they hold. To remain apathetic, to remain in docile thinking that they have no power, no capacity. Because they have a huge body of proof and everyone in their society keeps saying, look at the proof, look at the proof, look at the proof. But you don't need to look at the proof. You need to look at the codes that you carry. You need to stop listening to everybody else around you and start listening to yourself. You need to open up. Originally, you need to open up the communication channels between you and those in a higher frequency that actually know who you are, who are actually here to support you to being who you are. And you need to learn how to listen to that voice or voices over the ones that you're in. And here's the likely thing. You've probably already shut out the news, shut out social media, shut out all of these other things for a long, 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 long time. But the reality is that you also have two eyes, and you also know how challenging it is to live in a system of financial requirements that you don't have. So here's where we now shift. It is not your job to learn how to create money, to manifest money, to be the frequency match to money. Because your frequency match is so much higher than money. For you, coming down to match the frequency of money and overflow is like, this is so icky. This is so low. This is so weird. Because you are an infinite being and your native state is in infinity. Your native state is, I think, and there I have in my hand in front of me in this instant manifestation, this spontaneous synchronistic way of being and existing, where you create entire worlds, not an ice cream, not a car, not these little things. And it's like, I don't want to play in the kindergarten. I want to be in the full expression of me. I want to exist in a place where I am not creating a better life for the individual family unit that I'm in, or even just me as myself. And then what? Still live in the reality where subjugation, suppression, slavery, war, disaster still exists and still comes from. And that's the disconnect, right? You're still trying to fit into a world that you are not here to fit into. You're still trying to think, how do I make that which I want to bring fit here with me in this reality? And I think it's the acceptance that right now you're going to alter the visions that are coming to you. You are no longer even going to accept to receive the projections of this psyop, so that you can't even see the world that you're living in. So now you're actually going to say, plant my world on top of this one. And you don't even need to put names to it, 5D, 7D, 10D. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is that which is where your truth is, where you can access the codes of you, where you can live outside of artificial time, come back into natural time, come back into natural harmony, where the synchronicities and the creation mechanism is not something you need to learn. You are not a woman who needs to learn manifestation, generation, creation. You are a woman that needs to remember who she is at the frequency match to the truth of you, and accept to live there, and accept that everyone that isn't there is going to be no longer around you. And if you are willing to accept that reality, that you will reorganize the entire world around you, your entire world around you, in order to create the reality that you want by stepping into it because it is already there, then actually it's not that you've quantum leaped or you've done something where your reality here is now there. It's that you've stopped looking and pushing yourself into the downward state and instead moving up, or actually just assuming the positioning, the geo time-space coordinate where you are, where you exist. And the questions in that place stop being, how am I going to make money? What am I going to do with my time? What is my passion? The shift then becomes, what is the world I'm now in? And how do I solidify the harmonic resonance that I carry, that I am existing in, that I innately understand? Where is the note that I am singing in this symphony, in this orchestra? What is it that I add? Where is the interconnectedness? How do I slot in? And you become the thread in the tapestry of this enormously loving, plentiful world. that you know and you remember deeply within you that you are here to usher through. And the false ego that says you need to have validation, credit, you need to be the hero in this. That's yours to let go of. That's yours to let go of, because the hero that you be is just who you are at this level. It's not that you're not special. It's that you are infinitely special and needed and so, so valued, but not any more than any other. Because in a society and a structure of a world where accumulation is the value, that manifests in multiple different ways, right? So, okay, we know what it looks like to accumulate resources, to stockpile resources, money, minerals, parts, whatever it may be. And we stockpile them, and we have to pay for that stockpiling. We have to pay for that storage of what we have. We have to manage that. There's people's jobs that manage the stockpiling from this kind of system. And there's people's jobs that manage the extraction from others, from other things, whether that's the earth, from people. Do you think that people don't manage the trafficking of humans, the extraction of organs, like all of these things that happen? People are actively playing a role in the extraction and the stockpiling, in the taking and the hiding. And so where does that exist in us is the next question, because part of what happens at these subtle higher realms is we are playing out the agreements that we've made at this macro level internally. And that's how they exist. If you want to stop these awful, awful things from happening in the exterior world, then we need to mass wake up to say that which I am accepting within me of extraction and stockpiling of, whether that's in an ego sense. I want to have more fame than someone else. I want to have more recognition, more validation, more of all of these kinds of things. Stop seeing it as a wound that you have that you need to get over, and maybe try on the idea that it is a program, a subtle belief system that has been implanted in you that you don't actually believe and or need. And so the deletion of that program and the pulling out of your energy from that program can now solidify that that is not a need in you. In a different podcast episode, I've spoken about even my role of doing that with competition. That I grew up believing that being competitive was a positive trait. And I contorted myself and accepted that belief to be implanted in me. And it was only when I became an adult and my work in the remembering of who I actually am became louder and stronger and more dominant than the beliefs that were implanted in me, that I could feel the agitation of being competitive as being completely out of alignment. But the fear that I had in letting go of my competitive edge, my competitiveness in general, was like, well, what would ever make me get up and do anything? How would I find motivation? How would I find drive? How would I find a way to be, better every day? And the truth is, it is not competitiveness that brings that to us. It is actually competitiveness that brings us out, because now we're looking at what others do in order to pitch or position ourselves against those competitors. And you are now contorting yourself or your company or your mission or whatever it is from this external vantage point of where should I position myself so that we are competitive or different or superior to these. And the shift is this: it's irrelevant what any other competitor is doing to me. Just the very simple statement of saying competitors already is locking you in that viewpoint. But really what it is the shift into what I just said before, which is I am the note that I am, which I know and believe deeply in the core of me is that my truth is held within myself. And this planet cannot exist in the frequency, the harmonic resonance, the coherence without my note. Me being outside of my note is not competitive. It's not sustainable. It's untrue. It will explode. It will implode. It will not last. It is not sustainable. The only way that I sustain myself and the value that I bring to the world and the value that I bring to anyone else that I touch is me being fully in resonance with the truth that I be and bringing the note without distortion, without hesitation, without needing anything in return. I bring that note and I share it in the same way that the flower brings its bloom and then shares the seed and waits for whatever comes back to it to be in that reticulation of energy, in that interconnection. So you need to believe that you are separate. You need to believe that you are not important. You need to believe that you have no agency and you have no power and that your life is very meaningless in order to believe in competition and in order to elbow yourself and into an act. When I was recently asked I was recently asked about who are my competitors and how am I going to get an edge on my competitors in terms of my company at PhenXX. And I said, well, I suppose I would not be able to answer that question for you in the way that you are asking for that answer. And they said, does that mean you've done no market research? And I said, no, it means that I don't believe that I have any competitors and that I need to gain an edge on anyone. It requires me to be in a belief system that I don't seek to ever try on again. And it requires me to make enemies when there are none. I am in the resonance that creators create because they feel a calling to replicate an aspect of them or the completion of them, the totality of them out into the world in the same way the flower creates the seed. In the same way the flower seeks for its replication to continue for the joy and the benefit of others and the joy and the benefit of itself. And it asks nothing in return other than to share that which it is in its full beauty and its full truth. Now, this is a very frustrating answer for anyone that just simply wants to know you have, a competitor matrix and where is your positioning? Are you luxury? Are you, this, that, the other? But we are no longer in that landscape. We are no longer in that reality. And if at some times, just to make other people comfortable and just to make them happy with the answer that you give, you shift your reality and you accept the beliefs of that other reality in that moment, then you will never hold your coherent note. You will never be that which you know you are if you are only doing it at part times or behind closed doors. If you choose to contort yourself in one instance, you are allowing contortion in all instances. And that's the challenge, right? You have to get to a point where you are really willing to displease people. You are really unwilling to play their games and jump through their hoops. And so another aspect of this stockpiling is if I need greater validation, then the validation that I get from being the fullness of me in my creation, and I get to be that expression. I get to be the flower who blooms in beauty, in brightness, and in just absolute delight of that. I'm missing the point. I'm still in the slavery system where my worth needs to be proven, where my role needs to be validated, where my existence needs to be earned. Because a flower doesn't ask to be earned. A flower doesn't ask to be validated. It is. You accept that beauty or you don't. You bring that into your body or you don't. And flowers hold such a very specific frequency. And each kind of flower, each kind of plant, each kind of botanical has different codes for you. If you need X thing, you need to take the plant that gives you X thing. If you need Y thing, but you're taking X thing, and then you're blaming the plant for not being Y, that's the system of capitalism. That's the system of the 3D world. It is asking you to be Y, but you are X, and then blaming you for not being Y. And you needing validation for being X is still in the proving to that old system. But see, I am X. Take a look at that. You're not in the celebration of who you be and the note that you hold. You're in the frequency of proving I did it, nanny, nanny, nanny. So where do you want to exist from? Because the moment that you drop down into the validation, into the proving, into the contorting, into the competition, into the carving out your role within that and thinking that you need to go out and do something to have something, you aren't in the truth of you. And so what are you going to do when you're not in the truth of you that has any value to you? Nothing. Because in the truth of you, the eminence of your frequency is all you need to do. In the truth of you, it's not that you're enough. It's not that you're worthy. You are. You are the infinity of all that you be, interconnected with the galactic and cosmic resonance of the harmonic and the harmonic earth resonance as well. You oscillate and create in the vortex in natural time. You unlock the synchronistic events of that which you need to fall in front of you in that moment. There's no need to stockpile. That's just energy expense on something that you don't need to put energy into, because when you need the thing that you need, it will arrive. And as long as you don't have a narrow view into, well, this is how it needs to arrive and I need to control that and I need to present that in a particular way. If you just simply say, I be and I replicate the being of me in as many fun ways as possible. And every time I have a desirous thought to create something from this truth, from this resonance, from this frequency that I hold, that I be, that I celebrate, and the replication of me into that, all that you need will arrive in the moment that you arrive it. And if it doesn't, then the question starts to become, am I limiting how I'm seeing these things arrive? Am I limiting the currencies and the resource entry points into my life that I'm receiving? And then there's another thing that happens in order to get you to understand the infinity of you and the power that you have. And that is this. And this was a very difficult challenge for me, and it might require an entire new podcast episode, but it is to understand that with all else of these physical resources that are held into this other world, artificial world, when all of those resources are taken away from you, can you create the replication of who you be in the moment that you wish to create it? What I mean by that is, if you are seeking to create art, a project, a particular outcome. Let's just use the example of me with my every time I had an idea to go down a particular pathway to create it in a particular way, because I was still, working all of this out in physical form. I know this stuff, I feel this stuff in my body, but how does that translate into creation mechanisms? And sometimes, these old habits, they move forward and you try to take the wheel and you try to move something forward for yourself. And when that shows you dead ends, or when the resources aren't there, when the things that you need don't show up in spontaneity, in synchronistic ways, the feedback loop there needs to be either, how else can you create this without that specific thing? You need to open your minds. The creation and the ideas and the opportunities to create this outcome need to come in different ways. Or you need to follow the path that's unfolding. You need to follow the path that's unfolding because that's the better way to create it. And so sometimes it's simultaneously both of those things. I need to open my mind because I'm controlling the way in which this can come to me, and simultaneously go down the path that is unfolding. And what I learned from this way of doing things is that the resourcefulness that you can cultivate outside of the physical realm of money as the only resource, once you start to see that other people's ideas, that other people's contributions, your alternative contributions, your ideas, your creativity, your ability to act on synchronicities and spontaneous creation opportunities, gifts that are coming to you, things that you can trade, ways that you can tap into networks, ways that you can make things happen through your communication of particular ideas, through your communication of a bigger vision that invites people into it to contribute, to open this up. This was a really important part of my creation journey and my shifting out of that competition, right? Shifting out of that stockpiling and shifting out of that individuality. In a slavery system, you are individual and you do something for yourself and you get something for yourself as a result. But in true resonance with the harmonics of we are symbiotic, we are interconnected, we work as networks. Trees are networks, animals are networks, plants are networks, people are networks, and primarily women are networks. If you go too far down the road of creation alone and not in the togetherness of those who are actually adding the codes into your creation, you will stagnate because you can only go as far as your two hands can take you. You can only go as far as your mind and your creators' avenues will take you. And so opening that up to other alternative ways, you start to realize, okay, I don't need the money to do that. I needed this person, or I don't need, this, that, or the other. And then we're coming together. And so the replication of you is also in understanding that the replication of your vision has more people and more space to be held by others, to be amplified by others. And the way in which others come to you is simply by feeling the frequency and the resonance that you are, the coherence of your note, and knowing, I know how to fit in with that. I know how to interlock into that. This is something that feels really good for me. And so all of a sudden, your so-called competitors may be people that are locking into you. Your opportunities to see how these pieces all fit together at a higher vantage point, at a bird's eye view, at a galactic view, a cosmic view, change the way in which you even approach creation from this linear model of pushing boulders uphill into, and how do I replicate who I be on this earth if my truest desire were to create in harmony, in coherence, in the replication of the creation that I be. And I understand that the truth of me is held within my cells, and I need to be in my body, and I need to be in silence from all other people. And I need to come from a place that I know that I am truly, truly powerful and I can create anything that I want, but that my beliefs are going to create my reality. And therefore, anywhere that I am blocked or not moving forward, the first question can be, and do I believe something right now that I actually have outgrown, but haven't come to a term? So you never need to sit down and do a list of all your beliefs and try to do a brain dump of your beliefs. You need to go out and try to replicate yourself in coherence and realize where those points of pause will naturally put your attention to say, there's a belief here that isn't true. It's not in truth, it's in falseness. Release it there. Yes, creating from the truth of you is a completely new way of existing on the planet. It's going to be slower at first as you learn this, but because you step out of artificial time and you step into quantum vortex creation, that vortex and that spiral goes up, and that linear line starts to look very slow and very dull. But predicating all of this is understanding that you are powerful beyond measure, and that anywhere that you put your energy, you are creating life force. You are creating something. So if you are a person that says, I am not creative, I don't have a creative bone in my body, be very aware that you are therefore likely creating other people's realities and other people's creations with your life force, with your attention, with your energy. And if you would like to stop doing that and start actually creating that which you would like to see in the world, then approaching that with great intentionality is really, really, really important, because even just consuming the kinds of information, the kinds of videos and content that would amplify and activate people who are here to actually shift the axis of the world, that's already incredible. That's already incredible. And so moving into that space of like where I put my energy matters and being so intentional in that way is such a good first step. If you've already known that and you've already mastered that, I think the next best step is to start to say, how do I approach creation as the replication of the truth within my cells, as the note that I hold? And how do I do that in a way that is unfolding in front of me? There is no 5-step plan to that. There is no manual to that. Your body and your system and your energetic codes of creation create as you do. And you need to learn that system for yourself. Follow that system for yourself. Have conversations with your body, with your creation capacity, with your energetic signatures to say, teach me how I create. Let me follow the intuitive guidance and the steps that unfold in front of me so that I can walk on that path as it unfolds. Allow me to let go of all of the belief systems around what it does, what I need, or what I think I need to create some project, and instead allow that unfolding to come. I am patient, but I am learning, and I am eager to master this. And I am shutting off all other sources of information and listening only and wholly to myself. Give me the history of my own self now. Give me the history of who I am and the skills and talents and everything that I have. I am going to erase the stories and the narratives given to me by other people about my capacities on this planet. And I am instead going to actually receive the story of who I be, who I have been, and who I am here to transform into the mastery, into completion in this cycle, in this lifetime. And the mission that I have, I know I can feel it, but I need crystallization. I need clarification. I need help in understanding what that translates into in a day-to-day, point-by-point activity. And the spontaneous laws of this universe, the spontaneous laws of creation will unfold in front of you if you are willing to listen and act in that moment. That spark of infinity will come up, and it is your job to act on the impulse of the infinity. And you keep doing, and you keep on acting on these impulses, and your synchronicities will increase, your intuition will increase, and you will start to understand the unfolding of the blueprint of your own, not only mission, but creation style. And it is a very, very powerful way to use the mechanisms of vortex of creation outside of this linear system of slavery and corruption, and moving all of your attention and energy into your own creation capacities. And then as you get momentum, as you get to that point, you bring other people into that and you ask them to add their infinity and their spark of creation into the bigger vision. And as you broaden that vision and you hold it, you broaden again and again and again until we are holding a vision for a new earth and a frequency that is in harmony, that is in alignment with coherence, that is in alignment with each of our truths. And we will see a lower population because all of the different all of the different parallel realities or sideline realities, parallel timelines that we've gone off to say, well, is this one? Is this one? Is this one? In a reality of greater truth, you might have that sideline parallel reality in a different dimension, if in a different universe, in a different frequency space. But in the earth space, there will be a greater coherence and unification of self within the body. All of these other different parallel aspects will come back and converge, and you will start to have more and more and more power to apply in the synchronistic. So you don't need to go off into a different timeline, split yourself apart, split your consciousness apart, because in spontaneous flow and spontaneous creation, you can keep changing, and it's more agile, it's more delicate. You're going to start tapping things instead of pushing boulders. And so the convergence of all of those timelines into truth, because the soul will feel most at home within the truth of you. And those convergences coming back into a unification of truth of self will actually make you a more powerful being. We can start to hold the coherence of our collective harmony in line with the harmony of the earth, restore her in a coherent way that will reduce our interaction with this other world as well. And so it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe that was a whole bunch of rumble jumble, like absolute bananas, but I hope that something came out of that makes sense to you. If it doesn't, my suggestion would be to simply play this overnight when you go to sleep and see what is activated within you. In the next day, you can start to sort of have a more digested understanding of what I'm talking about, because it is a new system. It's not even a new system. It's the system of truth before you were hijacked. And so you don't need to believe me. You need to remember what is agitated within you from what I've been talking about and transmitting today. Okay. As always, ask as many questions as you would like. And otherwise, much love. Bye-bye.